Hey everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. I was flubbing over my words. It took me 3 times to do that intro. Now, before I get started, I actually put a video up on Patreon yesterday, and I want to echo some of the sentiments there before we actually get into the Q&A. Obviously, everyone's talking about and everyone's worried about the current pandemic that is the coronavirus. Now, as a content creator and a career introvert, I'm obviously doing my part as anything, whatever anyone could ask. I am barely going outside, social distancing, all that stuff that you hear. I've got some supplies, not over gratuitous as to leave things for other people. But the big thing I want to talk about is that a lot of people are going to be inside trying to enjoy whatever content's actually available on the internet. But there's going to be a lot of people who are doing that kind of against their will and are going to be seeing a lot of struggles economically over the next, God, who even knows how long it's going to take. So as you guys know, I shout out a Patreon at the start of every video, and I want to put a reminder out there how optional that is, because some people try to keep things going despite the hardship that they have, and a lot of people are about to have hardship right now. So while I put this post out on Patreon, not everyone checks any post that I actually make there. Please be comfortable not supporting the channel monetarily if it means that you're looking out for yourself during these harder times. Watching the video, liking it, sharing it with someone, engaging with the comment section below, all of those things are great, and all those things are things you can do in place of supporting over on Patreon. So I just want to give a very clear reminder, while I will be shouting out those who are there, that you should not feel bad, you should not apologize, and that you should, given the circumstance, be necessary, or just you personally want to take a step towards protecting yourself during what could be potentially hard times, to please go over there and remove what you are offering. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Cool, I'm not going to make you do it, but I just wanted to say that at the start of the video. Now, before we go any further, we got to shout out those patrons that are there. Their names are scrolling through in a list here. I'm sure there's some names that don't belong on here, but I haven't gone through and updated it in a little bit. I've just been adding the names as I see them, and I'm sure there are names there that I can take away. I think it's supposed to be like 84 names there. There's definitely more than that. And on top of that, we, of course, have our patrons of Darkness, Khuja on Jenova, and Kurenai Oni. Thank you to your continued large-scale support for the channel over there on Patreon. Appreciate you both, appreciate all the patrons, appreciate all of you tuning in every week as you do. Anyway, I haven't checked how many comments there are. We'll see how many questions there are and how many I actually get to answer. Let's get started. All right, first one to see, hashtag Mrhappy Monday. Ahoy there, Mr. How the hell are you, style? This is not style. I have a question for you. Are you excited about the new relic quest involving entering a Garlean-occupied theme park on the source and killing them with some weapons and gear? It's a little bit more in-depth than that. It's not like a Garlean-occupied theme park. Think of it more like a dimensionally torn Garlean theme park. We know that because of its involvement with the Return to Ivalice, it being mandatory, that there's likely going to be some very interesting messing with the elements and the and dimensional pulls. We see something in the trailer that leads us to believe that at the very least trusts are going to be involved, if not some version of our friends over on the first. And there's going to be a lot there. I'm more interested in the story than I am in the relic itself. This first quest should be very straightforward, like the A Realm Reborn 2.0 relics, where it's just this very straightforward quest, ends with a trial, and then bam, you got your first relic. We still don't know what the function of the extreme version of the trial is, but we can presume that it will be for obtaining subsequent weapons after the first one. I'm very excited for it, though. I really want to see what's going on in the lore. Like, what is really coming out of Bajra, because there's a lot of characters involved in it through the screenshots and what we see in the trailers. So I haven't been this excited for a relic quest. I never said I can't wait for the relic quest. I'm saying it now. I can't wait for this first, at least the first part of the relic quest that's going to be coming up. All right, number 2, this one's less than a day ago. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey, Mrhappy, how are you? I'm doing all right. Doing as good as I can in these times. I have 2 quick questions. What is the music you use on most of your videos? I really like it. So I use a website called Purple Planet Eaters. They allow you to purchase commercial licenses for a number of music. I don't know the name of some of it. I've purchased and have permission from Popsky to use some of his tracks, but I don't think I've used any in quite some time. And I'm trying to think if I use anything other than those 2. I'm pretty sure that's the majority of what I grab is stuff off Purple People Eaters, but there might be something else I'm just not remembering. That the one very calm track is certainly Purple People Eaters. I have a license to a track called Moonrise from there. But that's the number 1 place that I go to grab it, because I really like a lot of the music on Purple People Eaters. It might be Purple Planet Eaters. I don't know. It's one of the two. I think it's credited in some of my YouTube sections. Second question, do you prefer Bulbasaur, Squirtle, or Charmander? You know, as time has gone on, I've cared a lot less about the initial 3 starters, but I was always a Charmander kid. I always went with Fire, and ended up carrying over to Cyndaquil in Gen 2, and then I skipped a lot of gens. I didn't play again until Gen 7 and 8, and honestly, some of the newer Pokemon barely even... I barely even care. I like Scorbunny, but yeah, I'll go with Charmander. Charmander's a good choice. All right, we have an edited question here. I wonder what was edited. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hey, Haps, it's been a while since my last question, so here's a free bazooka shot on a mob of your choice because the shooting is the only fun part of Diadem 3.0. You got me there. While progging E6 Savage, the question occurred to me whether my dots as a bard keep ticking and do damage on the boss if I can't deal damage. If I apply to them before the debuff, since you have more than a GCD time to attack for both. On a logical standpoint, they won't. On how the game works with snapshotting, they do. I hope they do, but I kind of feel like they don't. Can you tell me? So I haven't played a job that has a dot in serious content in quite some time. Like I've done a little bit of White Mage and I solo stuff on Paladin, but my main job that I raid on is Dancer. So dots are actually not something I've had to track in quite some time. So yeah, my thought of so I don't have a set answer for you. I can tell you right now, a lot of the times when bosses jump away, most of the time in recent years, when they jump away and become invulnerable, they stop taking damage. I'd assume that debuff related dots would as well. Like if you dot the one that becomes invulnerable, that those dots would stop having an effect. But the only real way to know for certain, and I haven't done this testing, so I couldn't tell you, would be to look at ACT, literally reset ACT as you're going into that phase. Put dots up on the target that you're not going to be hitting. So like if you're standing next to Garuda, then put your dots on Ifrit and see if the damage keeps ticking up. It's simulated damage, so I don't know if ACT reset entirely properly, but it's usually pretty good at noticing when damage isn't actually dealt because of a mechanic like an invulnerability like that. So I think it stops. They've gotten a lot better at making DPS stop whenever there's a condition being met that would make them invulnerable to you normally. In this case, the actual buff that determines which one you're allowed to hit. So I'm gonna say with no certainty at all that they probably don't. Oh boy, we got a lot of text on this one. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Mr. Happy, I hope you are having a wonderful day. Today I had a question about you, for you about raiding with the static and savage content. Shadowbringers is the first expansion I've really gotten into savage raiding, and for the Eden's raid tier, I mostly relied on the Eden's Gate. I mostly relied on the party finder and learned to adapt to the end game. It was a bit of a process, but ultimately I was able to complete the tier and pick up some valuable experience and confidence. This tier, I decided to go for more stability and seeked out a static. Found one, shared my goals, happy to sign on. After a brief trial, everything looked like it would be good. Things went well for a week or two, but some unfortunate events have had adverse effects on our progress. A lot of underlying issues have started to come to the surface, and the general atmosphere of the group has been going downhill. My question for you would be, what would be your advice for being in a static when progression starts to slow down or come to a standstill and tensions are high? How can you tell it's time to accept that the group doesn't share the common goal, or it's time to buckle down and push through adversity together? So here's the thing. You're only talking about sharing a common goal. Now, let me be clear, that is the #1 biggest problem with statics is people just kind of getting together for the sake of getting together, only to learn some people are way more serious about it in the group than everyone else. It usually leads to a very quick division in the static, but it's not the only factor. You have to consider the skill level of the players involved. So obviously being this many weeks into the raid tier and still being unable to clear Shiva is no doubt going to be of massive frustration to the majority of groups. Not every group cares that much. It depends on how often they're raiding, how well they get along with everyone in the raid. Of course, do they share that common goal? But you left out the entire possibility that maybe people want the common goal, but they may not be on common ground, if that makes sense, in regards to the skill level. Now, you did say shared my goals, shared my skill level, so I am going to go under that assumption, but don't leave that out, because everyone might think they're of a similar skill level, but there might be players that are dragging, and they may not even realize it. So you have to always consider that, even if you think the group is as on common ground as they can be. So realistically, it comes down to, I need to know what your normal schedule is like. I need to know how many hours, how many days of the week. If it's like a one lockout 3 days a week thing, then people really, it's hard to imagine how frustrated people could really be, because you've opted into so few hours to get down mechanics in a fight that can go up to 14 minutes and 10 seconds, which in the case of in the case of a full raid night would be 8 pulls pretty much. So yeah, there's a lot of information that's missing, but it's just going to come down to you either beat it or you hit a breaking point, or both. Maybe you beat it and then that's the group sign to split. But if this amount of problems is arising because the group hasn't killed it yet, then it's without more details, it's hard to tell. But I'd make the initial assumption that the group's probably not going to continue to function as a whole, just based on this description. So literally, it's going to be one of the two things. You either buckle down and do it, or you split your ways and try to finish it with another group. And sometimes just a change of scenery is all people really need to feel remotivated. But it never feels good to have to drop that with the people you did all the prog with, and then pick up prog with another group and maybe pick up some different strats and yada yada yada. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer, anything more than what you've suggested the answers could be, because that's it. There's no, you either do those things or you don't. Alright, next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, a hap greeting from Luxembourg, Europe. I have a question. Good. Hey, I've had a few discussions with friends about all the restrictions in 14. You have he said tombstone. You almost got me to say tombstone. It's tombstone, like books, like a tome. Weekly loots in a game that has a monthly subscription. I know it's designed for making people come back regularly, hit the nail on the head, but don't you feel that since we're paying for the game, we should be allowed to farm everything the way we want to? No. I don't believe that. I believe you can provide feedback and it will be responded to within reason. A great example is in the early A Realm Reborn, right at the beginning, the tombstone cap weekly was 300. They raised it to 450, and then towards the end of the expansion, raise it to 900. Now, towards the end of the expansion, I would argue you don't need the weekly tombstone cap anymore, but it's a crucial part of their monthly subscription format. They need to have reasons for you to log in. You can't, if you can just grind everything out, all willy-nilly, most people will do as much as they can in a week and then put the game down, either from being burned out or from getting it all done. And that's counterintuitive. It's always important to remember one thing. Every service, every product is only as consumer friendly as it needs to be, because it's always going to be more about the business than it will be about the consumer. I say that's not always true. There are some people out there who do host sorts of products and services that really are all about the consumer, because they're just not in it for a profit. But any major for-profit business is always just giving you just enough within reason to make you feel good about what you're doing, but also have practices in there that are very clearly designed to ensure that you continue to use the service, or you have to continue to use the service if you want to keep certain things in check. For 14, it's weekly lockouts, weekly tombstone caps, daily map allowances, daily beast tribe allowances, instead of letting you just grind beast tribe reputation endlessly. Your house going away in 45 days if you don't play, making sure that you have to log in slightly, every, a little bit less than, or a little bit more than a month, but still not that much more. So odds are you're just logging in every month if you're not logging in normally. All these things are deliberately designed to get you to log in, so you are going to continue to pay your sub. And if you don't, the people who are can reap those benefits because they are playing and will do those things. So no, I don't think that since we're paying for the game, we should be allowed to farm everything, because it's a service that's being presented to us. We've opted into this service and we can provide feedback on it. But if it's functioning largely successfully and there's not that much of an uproar about it, and even if there was, it's just designed that way because it's a monthly subscription game and it's unlikely to ever change. So I would it's a pipe dream that you should probably accept as a pipe dream. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, Mr. Happy. I hope you and yours are doing well during these hard times. We are, so far. We'll see how that goes. Why is it the coils of a Hummin are not in the normal raid finder? Because they're harder than the normal raids. Think there's a chance they'll be added to the normal raid roulette? No. 5.x trials are centered around combat data from the coils. Well, they're not focused around that. The first fight has that. That doesn't mean all the fights are focused around coils. Just the first weapon does. And developers are working on a new game plus, and there are mechanics that can be learned from them in the future. Maybe a counter argument would be the raid series has loaded cutscenes. That's not the counter argument. That has nothing to do with anything. The coils are not a normal difficulty raid. The coils existed in a time when there was no normal story mode and savage hard mode. It was normal is hard, and then second coil savage was as hard as can be. Almost like 4 little tiny ultimate level encounters is the better way to look at second coil savage. So while yes, we can look back on them, think about maybe how they were easy for some of us back then, or we did them to death and we know all the mechanics, and you're right, new players could absolutely learn mechanics by doing those, but putting in the normal raid roulette is guaranteeing that people don't ever want to do the normal raid roulette, or people leave. Because if you get turn 5, turn 9, even hell, turn 8, turn 7, there's ways to, zombie your way through those, but they are not fights you want to do in the Duty Finder level synced with no, I mean, I guess you would actually still have Echo, but level synced down there with all the players who have never done it before. It would just get abandoned over and over again, because these are not fights that are done on the same level as the normal Raid Roulette. They're never going to be in there. It's the bottom line. Alright, next one, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hello, good sir. Hello. I've got a question or two. Well, you have two, so you should have just said you have 2 questions. I'm kidding. I'm breaking your balls here. Let's see. Solo unsynced content. So, 1, do you have fun when you do it? Yes, the only reason I do it. There's a reason why I don't craft or gather. It's because I don't enjoy doing them very often. The reason I do soloing is because I do enjoy it. There's a sense of progression that, like, when you're not progressing like a new raid tier, you're progressing something that's familiar, and you have to kind of contemplate as a single person, what is my limit? What can I ignore? What do I have to deal with? And how do I have to deal with the things I'm forced to deal with? And I love that. And I love that sort of process of thinking. It's very akin to what you get when you're progressing a new raid tier altogether. I also believe that if you've never played tank before, specifically playing tank in solo content teaches you a lot about respecting placement of defensive cooldowns. You obviously are using them in different places because the way that the fight is structured and its outgoing damage are not being handled the same as they would in traditional content, but getting the idea into your head of timing cooldowns and placing them at certain parts of the fight is very, very important for anyone looking to take tanking content in the current gear and item level and raid tier. It's good to get those habits ingrained in you. So yeah. It's been something I've been into since the level cap raised to 60. Right now it seems Paladin has the most ability to do it. That is correct. Rather prefer to see how far DPS can take it. There's a few fights where DPS are preferred. A1 Savage, for example, is definitely more DPS friendly than it is tank friendly, because killing them as quickly as possible is the solution to not dying. I think A4 Savage, when it is eventually soloed, will be soloed by someone like a Machinist or a Red Mage, maybe. I think Machinist is the most likely job to probably solo A4 Savage. It's the amount of damage you need is actually so high that it's going to be a long time, because you need to be able to kill an entire leg in 2 GCDs. And honestly, if you can do that, and you shouldn't even be proud of soloing half of the things that you're soloing, you know what I mean? Imagine killing what is essentially like a fifth of the boss's total health in 2 GCDs. Like, why would you even be excited about it at that point, you know? A5 is very similar. The first mechanic is 1 of 2, and if it's the first, and if it's one where you get stunned and you get an AoE marker, you're dead. It's not even a matter of damage. It just outright kills you like Judgment Nisi does. So that's another big question mark. 6, 7. I think 8 might be possible with enough gear. Right now, I'm stuck on the Blast Mirage that's in that fight, but I can get to it. I'm obviously concerned about Gavel, because I don't know how it's going to interact with me being alone, but it's probably not going to be good. I think Gavel is probably going to be a forced stopping point, because I don't think you can do it 100% correctly. And even if you can, you're going to have to take a bunch of failed conditions all the same, and it's going to be yikes. A9 I've sold, A10 I've sold, A11 is possible, and A12 is a big-ass question mark. I don't think it's going to be possible, and if it is, it's not going to be possible for some time. So yeah, the DPS will be able to do some of them. I'm actually curious about some of the fights in particular to see if maybe DPS become the first ones to solo it. 2, I know you've tried soloed A11 Savage. I've gotten it to Enrage, actually, and I think I could actually kill it with current gear, but I want my 505 Paladin weapon, which I'll have in 2 weeks with pages, and then I'll be trying it again. I think it's possible to finagle a well-timed heal. Yeah, that's literally what I have to do. I've gotten all the heal timings down for Paladin on A11. Do you think it'll ever be soloable by another tank? So actually, every other tank has the Pyretic plus Photon combo is actually easier. Brutal Shell can be used as a shield in order to give yourself time to heal as a Gunbreaker, whether it be to Aurora or, you know, to give Aurora time to tick. The problem is Laser X Sword and Limit Cut. So if you can skip the second Limit Cut, any of the tanks can do it. Right now, there's not enough damage for the other tanks to skip the second Limit Cut. Actually, that's not true. It's a matter of healing after that. So they don't have enough personal healing. Gunbreaker, actually, now that I think about it, the Laser X might actually be the toughest thing about that for Gunbreaker. They need to be able to heal after Superbolide, so they need enough healing to out-heal the damage the boss is doing. And they need to be able to have enough health and survivability to survive Laser X Sword anytime it happens in the fight. That's the only thing that's actually questionable. Warrior is the same way because they have health shields. You can use Brutal Shell, or you can use Shake It Off, or you can use TBN in order to survive that. Although Dark Knight Living Dead is fucked. You can't solo. Like Dark Knight for soloing, if you ever need your tank invuln to do a mechanic, then Dark Knight's immediately written off. So yeah, you know what? With maybe not by the end of this expansion, but by 6.0, I don't see why Gunbreaker and Warrior couldn't do it. They might even get kit reworks that make it easier for them. But right now, yeah, it's going to be Paladin, and I will probably have soloed A11 Savage, if not by the end of this patch cycle. By the end of the 5.4 patch cycle, it will 100% be done. Next one, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey Haps, simple question. It's cool. What quality of life addition changes do you want to our HUD options? I want the option to have HUD elements be click through. You know what? I'm not really that picky. And I don't mean you're being picky. I mean, like, I don't really have like a wish list for it at this point. Almost every quality of life thing I end up getting in 14. I end up getting, not even thinking about getting it, and then I go, oh my god, that's so brilliant, and I end up being super grateful for it. But off the top of my head, I actually don't have much of a wish list on this front, to be honest. Won't the Relic this time be very good, since it's going to be the best weapon at the end of the patch, and Ultimate's going to come out in 5.5x. So relics are usually best by the end of an expansion. So Ultimate, the next Ultimate is very likely going to be timed at 5.51. That's 2 weeks after 5.5 comes out. Odds are the Relic will not be the potential best item in the expansion until 5.55. That is the most likely timing. It could be 5.56. So there will be probably like a 5 or 6 week period where people don't really have it, or people don't have it with the right stats. And we don't know, also we don't know if we're going to have to randomize the stats again. So that is also a big determining factor. If it does become the best weapon, if it's like the Eureka one, you need to have the stats. You need to have rolled the correct number of stats. We don't know if it's just going to be static like for the Anima and Zodiac or not. So that's a question mark. But yeah, maybe like 5 or 6 weeks after the next Ultimate comes out, it will be the best weapon in the game, assuming you have good substats. But before that, no, it won't be. We'll probably start with a 485 step. The very first step will either be 485 or 490, most likely 485. And then I'm trying to remember what the Pagos weapon went up to. I feel like the Pagos weapon went up to 370? Did it go to 365 or 370? I don't remember. This one will probably start at 485 and either go up to 495 or 500 by the time we get to 5.35. Not in 5.25. That one will probably be 485. 5.35 will probably be 495 or 500 though. Oh man, you guys got a lot of text on some of these questions this week. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hi, hello to you and aloha if he's around. Where is he? He's not in here. I'll tell him hi when he said it. Hi. First time asker, so here's a bonus of 2 ruby totems per clear. I'd have 60-something right now if I had them already. Seems like a lot of questions the past few Mondays have been centered around breaking free of your training wheels and jumping into the magical realm of extreme and savage. A lot of advice given to people seems to be just do it. So my question is, how do I stick with it? I'm new to the world of high-end raid content with the release of Shadowbringers, and I tend to chicken out due to performance anxiety. New to MMOs, and 14 is my first and only. I feel like my advice is going to be the same for you that it is for the other people, believe it or not. I'm not used to all the terms and acronyms that the party finder tends to use. I often chicken out on joining farms, and more often than not, just join fresh learning parties if I've ever cleared the fight before, so I'm not the one to fully blame for the wipes. I believe this is an acceptable way to learn your role and fight at the same time. I main dancer because I find it the most appealing, but I also want to be the best gosh dang dancer I can, so people don't have to groan and roll their eyes. Yeah, trust me. Samurais know exactly what that feels like. Because even though samurai is fine now, like a good samurai is straight up like on par or ahead of other melee DPS, people still groan about it, and it chafes my underwear. I didn't want to say balls again. I said it anyway. Moving on. So anyway, so the question is, I often chicken out on joining farms, more often join. Well, I don't see why you would just join fresh learning parties. I mean, This is down to a confidence thing. You're not even, so the question started with how do I stick with it, and it changed to is it acceptable for me to just join fresh learning parties so I'm not the worst player? That's essentially what the question is. A lot of performance anxiety is just lack of comfort, and how do you obtain comfort? By doing something more. So my advice to people jumping into it was to just do it. My advice to you is to just do it more. People are always so afraid of screwing up, being blamed, whatever. Every static, in every prog, in every raid tier, in every learning party, in everything, nobody is perfect. People screw up. If you are confident you know the fight, you've done it a bunch of times, you die occasionally, but you're not dying every pull on the same spot every time, then you've done your part. You've done as much part as anyone else in the party finder, or even some statics do. You know? So just do it and do it more. Join those farm parties. Except that, you know what? You might still not look like the worst person in the group. Trust me. We've seen some farm parties that are not farm parties, to say the least. So I wouldn't worry that much about how you stack up to the rest of them. And if you feel guilty, like you've died too many times, like if you've done 5 pulls and you've died every single time, and you want to remove yourself from that situation, then go ahead. But if you don't do it and you don't practice it, you're literally always going to be afraid of screwing up and dying. So just do it more. Alright, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Heya hiya haps. That almost threw me for a loop. Hope things are going well as they're gonna. Had a question that's specific to Ninja, but it could really apply to any DPS. I've been playing since 2.0 and have mained a healer until the most recent raid tier, where I picked up Ninja for our group. What's the best way to handle cooldowns drifting off due to boss mechanics? For example, on E5 on the first Furious 14, the boss teleports away right after my trick attack would be coming up, and our raid just has me hold the trick and use it once the boss can be hit by everyone. I run into problems where things aren't lining up normally, like TCJ not being in sync with trick anymore. What's the best way to handle something like this where there's cooldown drift? So first of all, your raid team is approaching it correctly, especially as a ninja. When you have a tool like trick attack, the most important thing about it is that it lines up with everything that the raid team is bringing. It's very, very common in more orchestrated groups for teams to literally say, okay, no, don't use 90 seconds here, don't use 2 minutes here, we'll save them for this window. The general rule of thumb is, as long as you don't lose a use of the skill and everyone else has something lined up for it, then that's a good time for it. Honestly, what's likely to happen is you're most likely to end up just delaying your trick attack anyway until your TCJ is up. Because now that your trick attack is on this new 1 minute timer, it now has to line up with everything else. You know, as long as you're not going to lose a use of TCJ by the end of the fight, then shifting your alignment ahead is not really a problem. And this is something a lot of DPS could benefit from. Dancer in particular has to have this sort of cognition with technical step, because it's natural to want to pop it every 2 minutes, but that doesn't always work for the team. Sometimes you want to hold it 30 seconds. Sometimes you want to hold it even a whole minute. But as long as you know you're going to get the same amount of uses throughout the fight, regardless of if you delay it, that's all that matters. If you have to hold on to it for 2 minutes, or you have to hold on to it for 2 different times for 1 minute apiece, then it starts being questionable whether or not it's actually going to be an improvement for you. A great example is E8 Savage. The second phase lasts 8 minutes and 10 seconds approximately. So right as the boss appears, 2 minutes later, another 2 minutes later, and another 2 minutes later. Now theoretically, it's 8 minutes 10 seconds, so if you used it on cooldown, you'd get another technical right as the boss is about to enrage. But what's the point? It's going to do maybe the initial hit if you actually have the time to get it off, but it's not going to benefit the team in terms of lining it up. So what my team did when we were going through Prague is we lined it up at 0 minutes, 2 minutes, 4 minutes and 30 seconds, so I held it for 30 seconds, and then 7 minutes and 30 seconds, which was at the end of the Akmorn, the final Worm's Lament. That way everyone had 90 seconds. People with 3 minutes could also hold, because they wouldn't lose a use of their 3 minutes if they used it at the correct times, because they were only going to get 0, 3, and 6. So instead they got 0, 4, 30, 7, 30. See, it's the same amount of uses. And that's something that can really, really help beat DPS checks, and is a skill that, while mostly practiced in the statics, is not too bad to maybe try to coordinate with at least 1 or 2 of your DPS in the party finder as well. It's definitely for people looking more for optimization, but it's also the answer to your question subsequently. Alright, next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Monday, just the day. See, I always say it's Mr. Happy Mondays because it's like possessive, but I like this. Hey Haps, 2 quick questions. Hello, and let's get to it. Is there an effective way to not space out and lose focus during raids? Sometimes I can't help but get tunnel vision, stare at my hotbars, and forget about mechanics, eventually cause a wipe and get tilted over it. My biggest piece of advice, I'm a chronic tunnel visioner, believe it or not. My big thing is that I've shaped my HUD to accommodate for that occasional drawback. I've identified what the size of my tunnel was. Not a sentence I ever wanted to say in my life, but essentially, you know, where does my vision cut off when I'm like really in the moment? And so I put all of my HUD elements where I kind of identified was around the edge of that tunnel, and then my tunnel just doesn't really like having like partial vision of something, so my tunnel naturally expands, and eventually over time I grew to the point where I don't even have to look at the screen sometimes. Like sometimes I'm literally raiding, I know the mechanic's coming next, I know where I am in my rotation, and I just look at my other monitor. It's gotten that good to the point where I've gone from literally like to, you know, being able to do this and look away from the freaking monitor. I don't do it during like really hardcore prog or get it when really tense moments, but I can do it with a little more comfort. I think you need a little more comfort, a little more practice, and maybe to try to move your HUD so that elements that you find yourself focusing on, there's other elements that kind of draw your attention elsewhere. 2, how do you keep composure when things aren't going too well during a fight? I say, yo, this pull's so fucked. In all honesty, I kind of just accept the pull as fucked, and I just try to do my best for the rest of the pull. Now, if something is like really beyond saving and people are still trying to save it, it's kind of up to the group, because some groups will immediately say, okay, just wipe and do another pull, and some groups are like, no, let's practice recovering. And believe it or not, practicing recovering is actually an incredibly valuable thing, because sometimes people immediately, like, you can have a healer LB3 and someone will immediately jump off, or you could have a tank LB3 that would save you through the damage of something that's screwed up, and people don't, they're like, oh, we'll just heal LB after instead of using the tank LB to prevent the deaths in the first place. There's all sorts of little things like that that people panic and don't even think about. So if you're in a static, practicing recovering from a wipe by just like virtue of not giving up and starting over when your parse doesn't go well can be very valuable to a prog situation. Alright, next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. I like that your name has bagel, but it's like Bodgel, like it's like you're a Kryptonian or something. Hey Haps, asking my infrequent question again, but I do hope I had a possible realization after reading the most recent patch notes and seeing that Thunder God from the monastery was nerfed. I think I finally put together why Ramuh looks so different. Maybe that Thunder God had an influence on shaping our current Ramuh from E5. Yeah, it's possible. Any sort of thunder-based being has some sort of potential of influencing that. It's been implied that you know, we maybe mixed a little bit of our goblin memory with Titan in order to give him the ATV. At least that's implied by the developers, that may have been one of the results for it, without saying outright that it was. So with him, yeah, it's funny though, because one of the options you have in normal mode to remember him is his giant beard. And it almost feels like the Ixion model that is attached to him on the bottom to make him a Terra Centaur almost looks like it has like his beard, like his original beard, kind of like protruding out from it. So I almost feel like he just, like, his beard grew legs and became an Ixion body. That's how I like to imagine it being for him. But yeah, no, it totally could be. Any of those beings would totally make sense. At any rate, the actual question I have is, I'm leveling Monk at the moment and I feel the rotation is a bit clunky. Is there something I should be aiming to do as part of the rotation, or am I just missing the point entirely? I try to use Tornado Kick as the last attack on single targets and throw it in on longer fights just before I finish a combo. No, so you don't use Tornado Kick anymore. So in Stormblood, there was a very Tornado Kick friendly rotation where it was a pretty substantial DPS gain to incorporate very, very precise Tornado Kicks. Now, I'll be honest, I have not kept up with the most recent Monk rotation, but last I checked, Tornado Kick is back to being MIA unless you are 100% certain you are going to lose stacks. If you can keep stacks between any situation, or you don't desperately need the burst on something, then you don't give up your stacks for any reason. The only thing that, in my opinion, that feels super clunky about Monk right now is actually the double True Strike between Twin Snakes rotation. So basically, for the first 6 years of Monk, the order always went that you would do Dragon Kick every other rotation, Twin Snakes every other rotation, and then you do Demolish every 3 rotations. With GL4 speeding things up, it's changed a little bit. It's now possible with proper uptime to do 2 True Strikes between every application of Twin Snakes. So it becomes every other one is Dragon Kick, every 3rd rotation is Twin Snakes, every 3rd rotation is Demolish. So that really messes with my brain, and I don't like it. So that's the only thing to me that feels clunky, but it probably feels clunky to you because you're trying to use Tornado Kick super often. Use it if you're sure you're going to lose your stacks, or use it if you absolutely need the burst to kill something towards the very end, and you won't need the stacks immediately after, or you're going to lose your stacks anyway regardless. It's really just if you're going to lose your stacks, use Tornado Kick, otherwise don't. And you know what? I would probably go to the Balance Discord and look at the more recent Monk information to elaborate on that, because there may be more situations, but as someone who hasn't played Monk this expansion very much, you should only be taking my advice with a grain of salt and then further researching a more reputable source on it. Next one. This one doesn't look like it'll be too long. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey, Haps, haven't had anything to ask, but something strikes me as of late. Why did they never get around to finishing Proto Ultima armor? They made accessory and a body piece and everyone just forgot about it. Why did nobody ask for a full set? Because we weren't even, I forgot we even got body. Because it was not, so Proto Ultima was something that came to NA from the fan fests. Basically, every fan fest, they give us a battle that is going to be available in the game in a future patch. Proto Ultima was that case. So they gave us the high-level accessories for that. I honestly forgot there was even a body piece associated with it until you just reminded me right now. And that's probably why, because no one cared. So that's it. No one really cared. Everyone memed that, oh, Proto Ultima is 24-man. Oh my God, groups actually can't do it. I never get to see the succubus boss anymore, and no one cares. That's it. It's the truth. I don't. It's straight up. Don't think anyone cares. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Good day, Mr. Happy. Good day to you. Just wondering if you had any tips when it comes to purchasing FanFest tickets. I'd really like to go this year, but I've heard that purchasing tickets isn't the easiest thing. So first of all, I know a lot of us aren't seriously considering it. I wouldn't say all of us, but a lot of us aren't super considering it. But there is a very reasonable possibility there is no FanFest this year. And I know it's been announced, but we also don't know where the world will be in a month, 2 months, 3 months. And normally that sounds sort of sarcastic, and I don't think it'll be canceled, but very real possibility that they have to make the decision whether or not they cancel it before they start selling tickets. They don't want to sell tickets and then cancel it later and then have to process refunds. So we still have to deal with the very real possibility that we may not have a FanFest this year. And it sucks to say, but it's still totally possible. As for purchasing the tickets, this next NA FanFest in particular is supposed to have a much larger venue than normal. They said it was probably going to be like double the capacity because they're using the San Diego Convention Center. So with that in mind, it probably won't be that hard to purchase tickets this year. But we don't know because we still kind of question marks about the whole thing. If you're going to Europe or Japan, I don't know how rough those usually are. I will say one thing though. You must be a current subscriber when the tickets go on sale. There's like I say current, but there's like a time frame that you need to be a subscriber in order to get first dibs. They don't open general population FanFest tickets open until they've determined that they've given enough time to the subscribers to purchase their first-hand tickets. And if the subscribers purchase all the tickets, then there are no general admission tickets. So bear that in mind, that when you are waiting for the tickets, which will probably go on sale around June-ish, they'll probably have asked you to have been a sub somewhere at least like 30 days during the period of like February to May, somewhere in that range. I'd have to look at the old conditions to know for certain, but it shouldn't be that bad this year. It's the same as buying tickets for like a concert. You just go online, you put in a code, it tells you, okay, here are your tickets. How many would you like to purchase? 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know what the limit is. And then, all right, good luck. Here you go. And sold. Done. Just a matter of whether they get sold out before you get them and if the service can actually handle the number of people trying to do it. So, all question marks. It's still, we should probably have this discussion again closer when we know for certain there will be an NA FanFest. This name every time. Hashtag Mrhappy Monday. Hey, Haps. Me again. So this is a bit of a long one. No, it's not. This is the whole thing on the screen. That's not very long. But it has to do with new regions for future X packs. I know a lot of people want Garlemald for obvious reasons, but I see a lore issue with the Garleans not being able to manipulate ethers. So unless they fix that, it probably doesn't become its own region. We're also getting an exploration zone that's there. That's a big question mark, how we're actually approaching Bajja and how we're going to maintain a consistent mode of transport. It could be that Tartarus itself has to do with that, but we don't know yet. Personally, I favor the New World, or wherever blue magic's from. Yeah, America. That's literally what it is. It's essentially the Native Americans having blue magic, and it's the New World. You get it. But what is an unexplored realm of Eorzea you want to explore? I think Mara City has probably got some dark shit still hanging around there. That place is a wasteland of death. Still, after all of these, world-shattering events, after everything that happened with the Alligans, all we know about Maracidia is it is a wasteland of death. And if anything sinister were to be hiding on the source that we don't know about, that's certainly a place I'd go looking. So Maracidia is a big one that I want to explore in a future expansion. We're going to do a couple more questions because I got some other work I got to get done, and I've been talking all day, so I'd like to give my voice a little bit of a break. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hope Aloha is behaving and you are having a great day. I am, and right now he is, but he wasn't before this recording started. With the surge of content in 11, have you thought of comparing the classes in 11 and 14? No, because I don't really see a point. All I feel like that's going to invite is the just people who have this massive erection and nostalgia for OG 11 just coming out of the woodwork like, oh my god, the jobs are so much better designed in Final Fantasy 11. Look, my Blue Maids can do all this and I can use it in normal content. All right, that last part doesn't really require that voice because I feel like that last part's a specifically fair criticism. But with every job, it's just going to inflate that. I don't fucking care, dude. I'm someone who played Classic 11 for 7 years before Abyssey came out. And I don't care. I've moved on. I don't look back on those days and wish they were still around. I've moved on. And I'd like to move on more. That's why I play Modern 11. I talk about Modern 11. And maybe, you know what? I could compare Modern 11 jobs to Modern 14 jobs, but then I'd still be inviting the, oh, hello, Modern 11. It's complete shit compared to Classic 11. When will they open Classic servers? You can tell I've dealt with enough of that over the years. So probably no. I'll probably stick to whatever's in the bestiaries, making reference to those jobs, and probably not make a dedicated video for it. All right, one more question after this, and then we'll be good for this week. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays, but you'd see this question, and would I? Maybe I missed it if you didn't have the hashtag. I don't know. Just wanted to use the hashtag. Fun question. Trust have been implemented for 5.0, but it's only for the new dungeons. Meanwhile, squadrons exist for select few early dungeons. Feels like squadrons were a test for trust. Do you think they were going to do more squadrons? Nope. I think squadrons are about to be phased out entirely. Now, I don't mean phased out as in they're going to remove them from the game, but they've already talked about adding trusts to earlier expansions. Specifically, they've made mention of maybe running Praetorium and Castrum with, instead of 8 people, making them 4 players and being able to run them with the Grand Company leaders as trusts. This was something they floated. They didn't say this was happening. But the fact that they're considering that instead of trying to figure out how to make squadrons more accessible. Right now it requires you to already have second lieutenant. Then you got to go through this whole leveling process before you can even use them. And you have to send them off on missions and worry about this tactical point balancing. And, as opposed to trusts where you have going through the story the first time, and then you have the leveling version after the fact, which then you can still use to go back and do those same dungeons. They just have such a dichotomy between them that I think they'd sooner phase them out by releasing trusts in earlier expansions than expand, squadrons to be more accessible in earlier content. So, no. So the answer to the actual question is no. I think they'll leave them as they are and expand trusts. Oh man, I feel so bad. So I'm going to the next question that was in my list, and I was going to make this the last one. I think I still will because the video is getting a little long, but there are so many questions I didn't get to. There were a lot of questions under this video. So I apologize if I did not get to your questions. After I answered this, I think I had one spoiler related question that will go after this, assuming I remember to edit it in properly. I'm going to be making a note of that so that doesn't happen like it did last week. But this is going to be the last question, then we'll be done, and I apologize if your question just see. I don't know what how the YouTube determines the order of them, because I see some that are 4 days ago, some that are 6 days ago, some that are 3 hours ago, and I'm like, but how did YouTube determine this order? I think it's set to most relevant or top comments, but how is it determining what's relevant? I don't know, but this is going to be the last one. Apologies for anyone who was hoping to have their question answered who didn't get it. Hopefully one of the other answers took care of that. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey Haps, first time asker, but super long time watcher. Healer Happy is what solidified me into getting this game, so I thank you for that. I thank you for watching it. It's too bad I don't really enjoy making those videos much anymore, but revisiting some of the same topics in that might be actually worth doing here in 2020. So instead of doing a Let's Play, though, I'd probably cover those individual topics in their own videos. My question is that I actually make videos for 14, or at least I try to, and I've had some pretty good success with some of my videos, despite being quite the amateur. The issue is I feel as though I've been playing the game for so long, and I have a lot I want to talk about. But at the same time, I don't even want to think about 14, and it's really impeding content creation for me for a few months. You've been doing this for a while, and I wonder if you've ever felt anything like this, and there was anything you did to help get motivated again. I just want to get back in a groove. Dude, you and me both. You ain't seen my channel in the last few months, dude. It has been hard for me to get super motivated to do Final Fantasy 14 content. But for me, it's been for a different reason. For me, it's been constant second guessing, not enjoying the quality of my own videos as I'm watching them be edited, and then after days of working on them, scrapping them all together, and then general, tiredness and just wanting to have an afternoon to relax, or my cat's annoying me when I actually am motivated and I don't want to work because I gotta go spend time with him, and then I end up falling asleep, and I have been a roller coaster of suck this last 3 months or so. So the fact that people still watch my channel is actually incredible. I'm actually incredibly grateful for it. As for your issue, I have that. Don't get me wrong, dude. Just because I play a lot of 14 does not mean I want to think about it all the time. It's unavoidable. That's how I got my name on YouTube. That's how I got my name on Twitch, is through Final Fantasy 14. It's unavoidable, but there are plenty of times where I share this exact feeling where it's like, bro, I don't even want to think about it right now, dude. I don't want to think about, 8 different strats for these fights and how I'm going to make a guide for them. And that's why I've sort of taken this. This has been my thing that I've decided as of this last week. I made a video ranting about how the party finder infuriates me right now. And as someone who wants to make a guide that gives people the best chance they can have in order to actually clear a fight, it has been beyond frustrating to have to deal with waiting a week to make a guide. Instead of just releasing the guide week 1 and saying, oh, these strats aren't the best, there'll probably be better ones, but my idea is to give you an idea of the fight. I didn't do that this rate here. Instead, decided, I'll wait to see how the party finder develops, include those strats, so that way people are adequately prepared for the party finder in particular. And that's been fucking terrible. Because A, now I'm not making a guide with any of my own knowledge. It's all secondhand knowledge of shit that I've seen, which just isn't satisfying from a content creation standpoint. And B, nobody agrees on fucking anything. So my guides can't even tell people to do it a certain way, because somebody else is going to be like, that's fucking bullshit, you should do it this way instead. What a shit guide. And I just hear those voices in my head just grabbing at it, just being like, you suck, you suck. And that hurts. That hurts productivity a lot. So instead, I've just said, fuck it. I'll do whatever I want when it comes to the YouTube videos. I'll release a guide with a fucking strategy that I'll tell you will be outdated, but I'll at least have explained the mechanic, how it works, how it determines failure, and given you the information that it will be improved. That this strategy is not the best strategy. It is a strategy. It will be improved. But you'll have the knowledge you need to tackle it as early as possible and hopefully adjust to the better stuff in the party finder. The problem is sometimes people don't... I don't want to do the whole rant video again. Just go watch that. You'll understand how I feel about it. But my big thing is, don't force yourself to think about 14, or try to think about it from a different angle. Oh, you've played DPS all these years? Well, think about playing it from a tank's perspective. Think about playing it from a healer's perspective. Played on keyboard and mouse all these years? Think about playing it with a controller. What are your questions about those things? Like, oh shit, how do I do this on controller? Oh shit, where's there a hotkey for that? Anytime you've ever had to ask yourself a question about Final Fantasy 14, that should be your motivation for a video. I lost that, and I'm trying to get it back. So hopefully you have as much luck as I do, and hopefully my luck is better than it has been. All right, next question. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Mr. Happy. Hope things are going well for you. It's been a while since I asked a question. It was back. It's been a while. I want to be demonetized. But I'm back. The other day, my wife and I were talking about the story. Okay, so because this has the word story in it, this is going in the spoiler section at the end. Last week, I forgot to move the spoiler question to the end, but I included... in the description of the video, basically a start and stop time. I will remember this time to put any, spoiler, what I think will be a spoiler question towards the end. So this question will go towards the end of the video. How certain are we that the source is actually the source? Do you think there's a possibility that there will be a plot twist for the future that the first is actually the source? It occurred to us that there are no Ascian ruins on our world, and if there is, you'd think it would have been pointed out. However, there are Ascian ruins on the first. That says to me that there's a potential for the first to be the actual source of the source. So you know how we know the source is the source? Because A, everyone's been telling us it's the source, but B, because in the future, the first is annihilated and is rejoined with the source, and the source continues to exist. That's all the proof that you need, because only the source survives a rejoining, even if it causes a massive loss of life, because an entire world is being merged back to the source. Now, I do agree with you. It's kind of weird that the ruins are there, but you have to remember these are fragments of the original world before everything was split. That doesn't mean they have to be broken up equally. They've just been nearly identical in most ways. I'm also not going to lie. I can't really think of a time we've gone out to the middle of the ocean on the source and really checked. Closest thing we have is the Ridorana lighthouse, and it's possible that there are Ascian ruins in the God, I can't remember. Somebody help me with the chasm next to the Ridorana lighthouse. It's got the same name as in Final Fantasy XII, and I can't remember it. It's possible that either the ruins are in there, although we think that's mostly tinkering with Tartarus that caused that entire rift to be formed, or somewhere else under the ocean. We don't know. We've not really gone underwater exploring that much. Maybe you could argue our free company workshops would have found, our submarines maybe would have found something, but we don't know for certain that there are no Ascian ruins on the source. We just know where they are on the first. But that's going to be the last question for this episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Thank you again for watching. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and leave your comments in the description or in the comment section of the video below so I can answer questions for next week. Again, please be safe out there. Please be courteous of your fellow man, and please be hygienic. Wash those hands. I will see all of you fine ladies and gentlemen in the next video. And until then, take care.